The following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello, welcome back to Celtic World Order. As always, Steve O'Matt, and it's an absolute pleasure for you to come back and join us again for another wee video, whether you're watching it as it goes up or a later date retrospectively. All the support that we've been receiving from yourselves is greatly appreciated. So, you've seen the title, you know what's coming. A lot of people have been liking these sort of scoreboard type reaction things, and what better opportunity, I suppose, to do another one than off the back of a crushing defeat for our rivals, which all but secures the title. So we're going to go through it. We've got roughly about 2 days after the event sort of calls, and then a few from last night on the Monday to go through to really see what is the mood music, if you will, across the city. Listen, let's not forget, it's all good and fine, farewell, to be having a little joke, a wee jibe, having a laugh and enjoying these fun times. That's part and parcel, as they say, of football fandom, particularly football rivalries. But let's take 1 second to just congratulate our team for our efforts, our manager for his efforts, for ultimately turning round what was a topsy-turvy season and putting us back on top, where we want to be, where we believe that we belong. So a big congratulations ahead of that to the players, to the manager, and I'm sure everybody will agree that regardless of how we got there, that we got there in the end, and that's all that matters. But before we crack into this, as I say, welcome back to the channel. The support has been growing, the community has been growing, and we greatly appreciate it. If you haven't done it already, if you like what you see, you like what you hear here, then make sure that you give us a subscribe. That way, every time a video like this goes up or our live streams go up, you will be notified and you'll never miss a beat. If you want to help out a wee bit more, you can give us a thumbs up, and if you want to extend the reach, just share our videos. It gets more people in the door, grows the community, gets more eyes on us. And we're also on X at CWPod1888 if you want to connect with us on there. That's it. It's time to get down to business, isn't it, I suppose? So, as you'd imagine, there was a lot of angry bears, if you want to call it that. There was a lot of reflection on things. And I've always sat here and spoke on this podcast about what would have happened when the inevitable of us getting in the position that we find ourselves now, 6 points with 2 games left and the title all but delivered to Celtic Park. What would have been the mood music? What would have been the narrative coming back off the back of that? Because let's not forget, yes, we were well ahead in this title race. We were 8 points ahead, cruising, couldn't have looked any better. We then saw them sacking a manager in Michael Beale and getting their current Philip Clement. That coincided with a bad run of form for ourselves. It's, put it one way or another, and we started to drop points. Rangers went on, they won the League Cup, and all was rosy in the garden. If you believe the media outlets, Celtic were a joke, Celtic were washed up, the manager was clueless, and it wasn't just from the media that these things were being said. Along ourselves, in our own circles as fans, I'll be the first to admit I had my doubts midway through the season, but I'm glad to say that I've been proven wrong, and I haven't got an issue with being the bigger man and saying that. Brendan Rodgers has certainly shown his worth. The cream has risen to the top again, and Celtic find themselves back where we expect to be. However, we've went from being a team across the city who were going to win a quadruple, if you remember. That was how much they had turned the corner. That was how better they were than us. Now it's all the usual talk, isn't it? A rebuild, not the manager's team, so on and so forth. It's almost predictable. These things never fail to amuse you, do they? So let's hear what exactly were these fans saying when they decided to phone in. Well, let's dive in and see if there's some common sense in there, if there's some denial, or if there's just some downright sad excuses let's crack on.
William, is that it? Is it over? And how does it feel? Hello, Gordon, Martin Hewitt. Hello. Hi. Yeah. I was in last night, right? And I said everyone wins the game of day wins the title, right?
I think we all knew that whoever won that game was going to win the title.
Winning the title, right? But my main point is, you've got this term, serial losers, mentally weak. Well, it was on
Absolutely.
John Lundstrom, my God, he threw his players, his team, his manager, their fans all on the lap bus. You should never ever wear a Rangers shirt again.
William's no happy about John Lundstrom. Remember, he was the best on earth a couple of seasons ago.
We're in big trouble because that was terrible for him today. Right in the match, and then he does that. No, it's not good enough. How did you feel watching that unfold, William? How angry were you with him? Very, very.
I tell you what, though, he's sitting there and he's saying that if Lundstrom plays in the cup final, that he'll mend him. Well, I've got news for you, William. John Lundstrom more than likely will start in the cup final because your manager's comments didn't exactly sound like a guy who was overly disappointed with him. I think he said something along the lines of he knows what he's done and glossed over it. He's going to end up playing him again, so William better strap himself back in because he's going to get more Lundstrom action before the destination Turkey awaits for him.
Very, very angry. And my daughter's 9-year-old, she was more angry than me. I go, what can you say about that, right? Celtic go 1-0 up, right? 1-0 up. And I say to my daughter, watch this. Some Rangers player will do something after that. He kicks it on the net. We're back in the game. And then he does that. No,
That was a shocking tackle.
At least come on, right? And see what players you can keep and get rid of. See that man Sterling? He was magnificent for Rangers doing it.
To be fair, Dijon Sterling has been pretty decent for Rangers.
You've been done, William, and Celtic might have won today anyway, but is it particularly hard to take that from John Lundstrom on a day that it sort of wraps up the title for your rivals? Well, through the season, right, previous seasons, Rangers have with players that's mentally weak.
Previous seasons, Rangers have constantly had mentally weak players. Let's not forget here that we're talking about a team who have won one match when it really truly mattered against Celtic, and that was the semi-final in the cup when they went on to win that under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Other than that, other than a season, a complete and utter freak season where there's been no fans or where there was no fans in stadiums, when they didn't have that pressure from not only the opposition fans, the likes of we've seen at the weekend there at Celtic Park, but also their own fans when they weren't particularly performing. They got a free ride that season and the stars aligned for them. But if you look at every other season around that, no matter who the manager's been, whether it's been Warburton, whether it's been Kashinya, whether it's been Gerrard, they have always buckled when it matters. This isn't something new, and it still surprises me that they make out as if this is some sort of like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? How are we so mentally weak? Because it's the same people that he's continually, time and time again, managers come in and they continue to persist with losers. I've said it once and I'll say it again. The day Rangers decide to go and get rid of guys like Goldson and Tavernier and Lundstrom, then I might actually start to worry. Because see, as long as they've got guys like that stinking the place out, there'll be nothing.
Can't handle the pressure. Well, it was shown today, John Lundstrom. No, I mean, unbelievable. He's had a decent season this season in parts. But see that today? No, that's not good enough. How quick can you fly somebody to Turkey? I'll fly him there myself. I'll be the pilot. I wouldn't recommend it unless you have the necessary qualifications.
Oh, absolutely quality. He's raging. But do you know what? Again, I say this, we do these wee sort of videos lightheartedly. This isn't necessarily to sort of poke fun at the individuals that are phoning in. This is really just to sort of get a reaction to hear what people are thinking at the material time. And see, to be honest, see if that was my team, that's probably the exact way that I'd be feeling. You know, we only need to look back to the dreaded COVID season. And if you listen to these phone ins, that was pretty much a good handful of our fans every other week. So, you know what? It comes around, it goes around, that's it. It's a wee bit of light-hearted fun at the end of the day, that's it, isn't it? Who's next?
We focused in today on John Lundstrom, but ultimately another title that you've had to watch go elsewhere. How does that feel today?
Well, it doesn't feel very good, Gordon, obviously, right? But as I said to you, Clement's identified his weaknesses and his positives in that squad, right?
Has he, but?
As you said in your previous calls there, that he's going to improve the squad in the summer. Well, the thing is...
Has he identified the problems? Because look at the results previous to playing us there. Previous to that loss. Terrible points tally. Why? Persisting with the same people. So I'm not really sure he has. Now, they can argue the toss that they are picking from the best to a bad available bunch, but he's persisted with the same guys. So I don't actually think he has.
He stated his press conference, right? Only yesterday, right? Don't make any rash challenges. He's told his players, don't make any rash challenges, don't make any mistakes. And it's like John Russo just went like, two fingers up to him, I'm no care, I'm going to Turkey. Well, cheerio, son, you know what I mean? It is disappointing with most of the time.
It looks like Lundstrom is the man that's been hung out to dry. I mean, don't get me wrong, a red card and OG.
This season because it was Bale's team, right? But he's going to get his own players and will hopefully go for there. You know what I mean?
This sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's no his team. He's going to get his own players. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. The big question I've got is, how often can Rangers go to the well? A well that financially, I'm not going to sit here and be Celtic supporter, financier, FC, and be able to say that I know the ins and outs of Rangers, finances, because clearly I don't. But how often have we heard this? How often have we seen this? 3-4 times now. New manager, it's going to be a rebuild. He's going to get his own team. That's why the running joke of next season FC is constant on social media and thereabouts. It's all right saying that, but Rangers have the highest wage bill in the league, higher than Celtic. Think about that. These guys aren't on buttons. So it's all right wanting rid of people, but it's one, who's going to take them? And two, it could be very costly to rip up those contracts if that's the way that you go, which Rangers do tend to do. And then you've got to think about bringing in new players. Easier said than done. Just look at some of the guys that we've still got stinking out of the place. Your McCarthy's, guys like Segrist and O, for example. We'll struggle to get anything out of them. Money-wise, they're just burning up cash. And arguably, they're probably, maybe McCarthy aside, I suppose, but they're probably more appealing propositions than some of the guys that are stinking out Rangers.
Yeah, I think big picture, Hugh, that's understandable to a point. So we'll see what happens.
Nope.
Play the final whistle, boys. Anyway, right, let's go back to the Rangers' perspective. Sammy is in East Kilbride.
Yeah, Sammy's saying that.
How you feel about your team today?
Well, I don't know if you were there that day, son, but I phoned up a couple of weeks ago after we played Ross County and after we played Dundee, and I used the words disgusting and serial losers.
There it is again.
Like after that performance today.
Just on that, I actually think it was slightly ironic and a wee bit funny that I think it was the day before, the Friday, there was the Kellogg's thing, and the Rangers players were turning up to their training. They were getting handed out cereal boxes with their kit and all that on it. Now, serial losers, personified right there. I'm sure, obviously, with the sponsor of Celtic, we would have also got them as well, but it's not quite funny because you could say serial winners for Celtic and serial losers for Rangers.
I've been completely vindicated, in my opinion, because yet again, the big players at Rangers have let us down.
Yep, Sammy, you're right, mate.
Absolutely garbage. And that's not a great Celtic team we were playing against today.
No.
They're fine, they're decent, they're good. And we've got a lot of injuries.
Being reflective on our team, we've been robust. We've been, as Hugh Keevans, as much as I don't like to quote him, we've been durable. We've managed to get the job done. But I think you, I, and everybody else can see that quality-wise across the board, we are significantly lacking. The manager said it throughout the course of the season, we need more quality. We need a higher calibre of player. with the financial riches that will be coming up in the summer, hopefully that's something that we can do. I wouldn't go as far to say that we're a terrible team, but it's certainly not been a classic Celtic team. It's certainly not a team. It probably is, to be fair, one of the worst that I've seen in maybe the last sort of 6 years, I would go as far to say. You know, that's no disrespect. There's a lot of guys in there that are good, but it's far from being an impressive Celtic team. And there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of surgery to be done to get us right back up to where we want to be. But it's irrelevant to whether he thinks we're a great team or a bad team, because we still beat Rangers. You know, we still took 10 for 12 points against Rangers. So what does that say about them?
The big players, the ones I mentioned before, Tavernier, fine, Golson's injured, but Tavernier, Lundstrom sold the jersey today. He had no interest. He's going away to Turkey or wherever he wants to go. They had no interest in that game today, and they were absolutely pummeled. And you laughed at me the last time I was on here when I said the Rangers only play when the pressure is off. And when we were 2-0 down to 10 men, they get a penalty. Fine, they missed the penalty. Should never have been a penalty. Should never have been a red card.
This is wild stuff. Classic fan denial. It was never a red card. It was never a penalty. I still can't believe this. You know, we were all watching the game. You were either at it or you were watching TV, and you've seen it many times before. I genuinely can't fathom this notion that fans out there are having. Guys like Kenny Miller having the audacity and the redneck. You couldn't actually scorch his neck with a blowtorch. He's that brass. He's sitting there and saying it's not a free kick. No, sorry, it's not a sending off. It's not a red card, and it's not a penalty. If that's not a red card, then I don't know what is. What do you need to be doing? Standing on somebody's head? It was absolutely wild. When you've got guys like Chris Boyd, the staunchest of the staunch, as we all know, sitting there, who's normally cannot say anything negative, trying to be controversial, when he turns around and even says to Kenny Miller, mate, I'm trying to defend you here, but it's a red card. That is when you know it's a red card. As for Sammy here, he starts off on the right track, to be honest. Again, it's not for me to sit here and say who's right and who's wrong. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But he says exactly what I've been saying, what every other fan out there knows. And I said earlier, these guys that he's highlighted, serial losers. Now, you can point to Tavernier and his stats and everything else. Yes, he has been a great servant for them. He's achieved great numbers in terms of goals and stuff. But when it comes to the crunch, Rangers fans would rather he'd scored 10 goals and 2 assists and won the same amount of trophies as Celtic had. Because that's really, when all's said and done, all that you will be remembered for. Let it not be forgot that he is a Hall of Fame captain for Rangers, yet he has overseen the most barren trophy period ever at their club. He has seen Celtic lift more trophies than any other Rangers captain. And see if he stays about for the next season and the season after that, he's going to see a lot more trophy lifts. But Sammy then goes off and he goes into a sort of excuse mode, doesn't he? It was a penalty. It was a red card. There's nothing else to say.
Never mind.
Ooh, let's stop you. You don't think that's a red card from John Lundstrom?
When we're sitting there at 10 men and 2-0 down, suddenly Rangers decide to appear and start playing football.
Can we revisit it, Sammy, if you don't mind? Can I let you go on for sure? You don't
It's
think
not,
that was
let
a
him
red
away with
card
it.
by John Lundstrom?
No, it's a contact sport.
Yeah, I mean, but where do you draw the line then? So any contact's allowed?
Well, it's a contact sport and it's called football. It's not called shoulder ball. You
What?
can't shoulder into people and that's okay.
Nobody shouldered anybody. It was coming like a freight train, sliding across, 2 feet, stud shown, and he actually lifts one of the legs and it hits right across the ankle, just above the ankle, around about the shin. No shoulder involved.
Whoa, Sammy, let's... Yeah, because everybody's got their opinion, but what are you on about shoulder? John Lundstrom flies in and his studs catch Alistair Johnson's
Yes,
ankle,
they do.
So how can that not be a red card?
My point is, the game is called football. The ball is meant to be on the deck, and people will challenge for the ball with their feet.
Correct. So the key is try and kick the ball with your feet, not
He
stud
got
other people on the
absolutely
ankle, surely.
nothing off the ball.
I mean, you could see
Intent isn't important. I say it all the time. You look up the rules, intent is not mentioned.
well, it should be.
This is where, again, this is just reaction. You know, Sammy's doing what every fan would do. I mean, certainly I would never phone up if that was a Celtic player and say that it wasn't a red card. If anything, I'm saying it was a red card. And as he says, also, you sell the jerseys by doing it. Madness, this notion that intent needs to be there. Intent. If that was the case, nobody would ever get sent off, bar a couple of players that have been nutcases that have just went out and went for it and went into business for themselves, as they say. What a lot of nonsense.
Again, that's fine. I think I should be able to drive at 90 on the motorway, but I can't.
I think just on Old Firm Day, supporters in the depth of their disappointment become irrational. And I think Sammy is irrational.
Yes. No, I can't believe I'm saying it. I agree with Hugh Keevans. Wow.
Clear as day that the challenge was disproportionately forceful, was dangerous to Alistair Johnson, who late in the match had to go
Was
off
dangerous.
feeling the after effects
You know,
of the challenge.
The challenge was completely dangerous. It was reckless. And the fact that their manager doesn't even question it tells you all you need to know about it. Let's see what else has been happening here.
Fair enough. I think it could guess.
But
Yeah.
whatever, bottom line, it leak a penalty and a red card defence.
Right, we can agree on that one, Sammy. I'm interested in your more general point. I know I sidetracked you a bit. So what?
Let's see what he's got to justify
you really
here.
feel like there needs a big clear out. You're not happy at all with the Rangers players at the moment.
I phoned in a few weeks ago, and I was ridiculed online for calling the team that Philip Clement has Michael Beale's rejects. I called them serial losers.
They're not Michael Beale's rejects, are they? Because they were Michael Beale's men. He picked them. They're not as if there was guys that he didn't want that Clement brought in. What a lot of nonsense.
Behind my back. And I think today I've been completely vindicated in that opinion. Absolutely.
I mean, fair play to Sammy. As much as I don't agree with the nonsense around the penalty and the red card, he's clearly seen what everybody else can see. That as long as they keep guys around like the people that have been mentioned, that they win nothing.
They have. And that was another term I used. Bottle merchants. Would you not agree that today was another prime example of serial losers and bottle merchants?
I listened to Marvin Bartley.
I don't want to listen to Marvin Bartley because he talks nonsense. But there you go, nail on the head. Sammy's all over it. Bottle merchants, serial losers. And I spoke about this at great length in many of the previous podcasts. This is the way it is. You look at the two different managers, the two different camps in the lead up to this game after the post split. You've got Celtic players, Brendan Rodgers coming out. The message is consistent. The message is linear. The terminology constantly getting used was mentality, character, knowing what it takes, focusing on ourselves. Exactly what you want to hear. Laser focused on the prize. Whereas you looked across the city, you guys like Dijon Sterling coming out and saying stuff along the lines of that there wasn't unity in the camp, that they weren't performing well, that there appeared to be divides. You've then got their manager coming out with all these crazy quips that were akin to caravans moving on and dogs barking again. A man that was fractured, a man that was shown that he couldn't handle the pressure. Now, if your manager can't handle the pressure, if he can't take the goldfish bowl, then that's going to creep in to his players. You also only need to look at the fact that they've got incidents whereby they're pushing fans, they're arguing with fans outside, massive exterior elements that were creeping their way in to an already weak mentality. That's the difference, polar opposites between the two clubs. Celtic shutting out the noise, focusing on themselves in the here and now. Rangers getting sucked in to wee quips, wee comments that the manager says, our manager says, throwing it out there like a big bit of bait and a bit all over it, and then everything else, and it just swirls in their head, and they're beat before they even go out there.
And I know Gordon Dalziel won for studying the players as opposed to
Let's see,
Celtic,
let's
who
move on,
tend to do
Faye.
is zipping the ball about.
This is actually quite interesting here.
The Celtic players, and he thought in the Rangers players as opposed to the Celtic players, and he said the Celtic players are zipping the ball about, but the Rangers players, no, they weren't doing that, and the coaches were having to G them up almost as if before the game started they were lacking in confidence. I don't think that was entirely true in the...
That's an observation alone. They're sitting there talking about before the match. Celtic are out there. We're going through our drills. We're putting the ball about. We look energetic. We look up for it. Rangers are standing about in a malaise. Why? Because mentally inside, they are beat before the ball is kicked.
From Philippe Clement in the not too distant future, but the warm-up act will be Ali in Bells Hill. What is it you want
See
to
what
get off your
Ali's got
chest
on
today,
his
Ali?
mind.
How you doing, guys? First time call.
What made you call?
Willie Collins' performance today. I mean, I think he should have stuck with his on-field decision with the yellow for Lundstrom. The decision he sent them off changed the game.
Of course it did, but it was the right decision.
Absolutely raging there, to be honest with you.
What was wrong about it then? Tell us why they got that wrong, or how it...
He's raging. This was something that I discussed earlier on the podcast as well. Fans, whether it's ourselves or Rangers fans or whoever, we often look to the announcement of who's in charge, who's the man in the middle, who's on VAR, and from their side they'll say, well, we call him one of them, or if it's ourselves, we'll go typical, it's beaten. And fans almost look for an excuse. They're preempting something before it's even happened. Now, no matter what you think of Willie Collum, I actually thought Willie Collum had a pretty good game at the weekend. I thought that the large key decisions he got right. He gives the yellow card, and this is what they keep on forgetting. It's Stephen McLean who's on VAR, factually known to be one of them, if you want to use that term, a Rangers man. He's the one that called Willie Collum over and says, Willie, you might want to look at that because that's probably a red card. So get it out your head. As we've seen time and time again, matches are getting re-refereed from a van or from a control room somewhere else with people watching VAR. The decision was ultimately made by Willie Collum, and it was the correct one because he didn't, at that speed, it's hard to see exactly what the contact is. But it was actually a quote-unquote Rangers man who called over Willie Collum to make that decision. They don't mention that, though. It's easy just to target the referee because the agenda was set up that Willie Collum was one of them and he was being wheeled out to pull out all the stops, which I find pretty ironic, pretty funny when you look at the cross-section of referees and officials in the league where, if we're being completely honest, it's probably heavily skewed. It's maybe about 80+% that if they were asked or forced would be Rangers supporters. It is what it is. I thought he had a good performance. Surprised that more Rangers players weren't booked. Diamandi, for example, being one. But on the whole, I thought Willie Collum was actually all right.
It's an old fun game. These challenges happen.
But see, that's the thing, Ali. That's the difficulty. I know we throw these phrases around, and I'm not trying
absolute draconian old school thinking there. It's an old firm game. Well, it's actually a Glasgow derby, but these things happen.
For me, it was a yellow. I think the yellow should have stood.
Of course it was a yellow card, mate. Of course it was.
I've heard he's returning in the season. Is he wanting to get with a bang?
There you go. One of them.
But Hugh, well, look, let's be honest. Willie Collum has come up with some big old moments.
He has, and people forget this. I've actually said time and time again that I think Willie Collum, I'm not saying he's deliberately doing it, but Willie Collum has been accused of being one of us, being a Celtic man for that long, that it's almost as if he's went above and beyond to try and say, I am not one of them, by giving some ridiculous decisions. None more ridiculous, of course, than the infamous back-turned and hard contact penalty at Celtic Park. But again, we can all forget these things when it doesn't suit the agenda, as it doesn't for this chap.
That we will debate and we'll say that he got wrong. I just don't know if that red card's one of them.
I cling to my belief that on Old Firm
It's a 100% a red card.
Turns into an irrational frame of mind. Willie Collum did what the rest of us did.
It's
We
clutching
wanted it
at
first
straws.
time,
It's looking
and
for
we thought,
something
"I'm not sure."
to
But he
mask
went to the
the
monitor,
fact that
and by the
Rangers
time
have
he
not
got
been
to
good
the
enough.
monitor, we were seeing footage visibly beyond all shadow
Let's
of
get
a
this
red
moving
card
on to the
offence.
next person.
So, the progress of the game was not only diving into that kind of challenge,
It is diving in.
he cost.
This is the thing as well. The guy's saying about, oh, it's an old firm game. It's an old firm game. These tackles happen. It's that old school blood and guts and thunder mentality that Rangers seem to have. You only need to look at guys like Barry Ferguson coming out and saying that you've got to give Cal McGregor a whack and this kind of stuff. As I said on the pre-match, trying to, as I call, staunch your way to victory. They've done exactly what I thought they would do. They overloaded it with midfield holding types, hoping to outmuscle. It didn't work. It frustrated them, and frustration came to the fore with Lundstrom.
Rangers, and I'm very interested to hear was a red card, and there is no doubt about it.
My
No.
favourite bit of the summer is when I don't need to keep reading the rule book. But Ali, serious foul play, right? That's why he gets sent off. A tackle or a challenge that endangers the safety of an opponent or uses excessive
Ali's getting the
force or
rule book thrown
brutality.
at him here. I wonder what
Any
he's
player
got to
who
say about
lunges
this.
at an opponent and challenging for the ball from the front side or behind using one or both legs
It is a
with
lunge.
excessive
It's
force or endangers the safety of the
excessive.
opponent is guilty
The,
of
the
serious
speed,
foul
the
play.
pace, probably.
Which of those boxes do you not think it ticks?
None of them. I don't even think it's none of them.
You don't think that was a lunge, and you don't think it had excessive force, and you don't think by catching Alistair Johnson flush
Oh,
with the studs
man.
on his ankle that it endangered his safety.
You get these full-blooded challenges in these games.
But that's
You get these full-blooded challenges in these games. That's it. I mean, you can't really argue with that, can you? It wouldn't matter what you said. You could tell him white was black, black was white, green was blue. That's what you're going to get out of that guy. He's not going to. He's not going to be. He's going to, like Kenny Miller. That will be the hill that he's happy to die on. Denial of what was blatantly obvious.
I think it's a yellow. See if bar's not there, it's a yellow on it. The yellow stands.
Yes, but in that case, we're probably saying Willie Collum got that wrong, though. We're not saying that he got it right in that regard. Yeah, as I say, Gordon, I get this, and I'm hearing it.
See, this is the thing, and it's true. If we don't have that VAR, the yellow card stands, but retrospectively, we would look at that and say that should have been a red card. The VAR folk don't like it. I'm not a great fan of it myself, but by and large, some of the decisions it does get right, and that was one.
That is the framework. Lou, it's very tense for John Lundstrom.
I think everybody cannot believe anyone that would say
Let's see
that
who's
that's not
next.
a red card.
Anyway, everyone's got their own take on it. Ali doesn't agree. Here's what Philippe Clement had to say.
This is
We're
interesting.
here on the performance and on John Lundstrom as well.
The first 20 minutes we were not aggressive enough.
Not aggressive enough.
So that's, and after of course the red card.
It's always about aggression, isn't it? It's never about getting the ball down and playing good football.
Because after the 20 minutes we were coming into the game, we had enough chances also in the first half. At halftime,
You actually did have all right chances,
it was
Silver,
similar.
particularly.
Only a few more shots from distance from Celtic. And you need to take
They had the
those
same
moments that
XG going into half time, apparently.
That's clear.
Way, that's
and
no,
we need to
put
play
that one
90
in the
minutes
cupboard.
like they played the last 70. What was also, of course, more and more difficult if you play with 10. So that was a thing that I never want to see. And Lenny is the first one who
See,
knows
he's not
what
endorsing
knows.
this challenge
I don't
that
wanna see
a lot of the
that kind of
fans
tackles,
think.
not anywhere on the pitch, and there was totally not that necessary. So it's one split second.
See, I wonder how that will go down with the general fans. He doesn't want to see those kind of tackles. Now, nobody wants to see potential leg-breaking tackles, but you've got numerous fans we've just heard coming on, wanting a bit of dig. These challenges happen, get in about them. They'll not be happy if they think their manager's telling them to stand off and not to be aggressive.
A wrong decision making of a player, but I don't forget also what he's been doing for the team.
And this is what I say is,
last couple of months
this is
together,
why he
and
will
this
play
year for
in the cup final if
for Rangers
available.
also. So he's the first one who knows he made a mistake. Well, there you
So they can strap themselves in because they're going to get another Lundstrom performance sometime soon. Let's see who's up next.
Rangers fan from Rotherglen. How do you look back on it today, Jim?
Hi, how you doing, guys?
Good, thank you.
Very well. Well, see, soon as I saw the team, Clermont's been getting into a title decider with guys that are leaving the club in 3 weeks. Barisic, Lundstrom. We Red Van come on and hit a stormer.
See, you could argue this toss all you want, that playing guys that shouldn't play. I think it's different circumstances. If you look at Edward when he played against Rangers before he went for us, he wasn't up for it. But they've got guys there that are playing that, yeah, they might be leaving. But let's not forget, and I keep saying this, getting into that game, if Rangers were to have won it, there was still a good chance that they could have went on against Dundee, against Hearts, and get massive wins. Nothing to suggest they would have, but in principle, they could have still went on to win that league. So it's not really fitting to come up with that excuse that we played guys that didn't want to be there, because they had everything to play for in that game still. Everything to play for. Unlike guys like Edward and Christie and stuff that we played that didn't look too interested because they did want to go, and that was at the start of a season.
Your tried and trusted core can't be trusted. That's your problem. And anybody we bring in with age
Comes back to what I said again earlier, and I'll keep saying it until the cows come home. The longer they continually play these clowns, these underachievers, they'll win nothing.
Acting the big man. He's beat one of the poorest Rangers side. That's pre-Gerrard, poor team now. So he's not done a great job. But
On reflection, one of the poorest Rangers teams ever. That wasn't what we were getting told. What was it, around about
I don't know.
February?
Right. You think
February, we were getting told they were going to win a quadruple. But now they're garbage because they're not winning anything. Now that's convenient, isn't it?
Gerrard poor, as in like teams that first season back didn't even finish set, feel strongly about the season and won. This team, and I know you can bring in Celtic, then went to the 11th of May before it realistically came over. Is that not some sort of self-preservation?
There you
thing
go.
where you try
Yes,
and
it
take
is.
something away from
Absolutely.
Celtic's achievement by actually, going overboard in your criticism of your team. They're not pre-Gerrard poor.
Sorry. I think the thing with your team is regarding the skill or how good they are. It's ball. It's absolute ball. And nobody had any confidence in us the day
It's-
or something at
it's
the back. Now, we
Absolute
actually did
fanciful
exactly
nonsense
what
that he's
last
coming
season.
away with there.
When the pressure was off, they went on a good run because it didn't matter. And they've done the exact same this season to the wet toe and Motherwell beers. And then with that week for hell with Ross County and Dundee, that's the problem.
I believe that week was of their own design. Remember, they wanted a free run at it before playing us, when they could have played the Dundee game, and probably if they
would
just
also take issue with you.
toughened up and played that game, they probably would have won it. But they done it themselves.
Jim over Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers was defending himself and his daily.
Yep.
So
I'm not really too bored about that. I'm not really bored about that.
Well, I'm just taking the point that he's not beating a good Rangers side. That's what I'm saying.
And if you listen to your other fan on there, he's done it with a not a very good Celtic side.
We were actually all over them for the last 15 minutes, but we never had the players of the calibre to get a goal back.
See, they did get a wobble. Here's the thing, and this is where his argument falls down, because I said this on the post-match, on the breakdown. Yes, Rangers wobbled us for a wee bit. Did they look like they were going to necessarily score? Well, no, but they totally flipped the action for about 15 minutes, and they did have, the lion's share of the game, and they were certainly pressing us a lot more. But yet, he's turned around saying that Celtic aren't a good team, and that Rangers aren't a good team. But he then goes on and says about how they were controlling the game. What is it, mate? Like, yeah, we're controlling the game, but you didn't have the quality. Well, if that Celtic team were that bad as you profess they are, then surely you would have made that count. Again, what does that say about yous?
That's what I'm saying. He's not beat a really good Rangers side to get this, to give him all the praise, Hugh. That's the only point I'm making.
You can't just change it. I mean, up to about 5 hours ago, this is a Rangers team that was going for a treble.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
It takes something special to get a treble over the line. Now, if Philip Clement did get it over the line, the treble, Rangers fans would be on here saying the total opposite.
Absolutely.
It's a great team he's built.
How the narrative has changed. How they have changed.
There's creative play players. So you can't just change that opinion and say, oh, it's not very good. You're right, Gordon, bringing up when they went to Europe and games like that. They did look at a
It's
good outfit.
one size fits all excuses.
Since Philippe Clement has come on.
Philip Clement was the second coming of the Messiah, and now his team's garbage, and it's not his team, and it's a rebuild and everything else because it's not working for them. Terrible. Let's get another one in here. Let's see what we're getting.
From the highs of that, Craig.
Let's see what Craig's got to say about it.
Team at the moment.
Disgusted by a lot of them, Gordon. I said this after, I don't know if you remember, I said this after the Ross County game, the Dundee game. I'm just sick to death at a lot of them. Just a quick point of the previous caller, he says Rangers have not changed anything recently. They did complete rebuild last summer. We can't keep doing that every year.
Yep, that's it.
My point is, I'm sticking with the manager. We've brought in a Belgian.
I mean, fair play to him. He's sticking with the manager. I suppose they've no other choice, have they? Because you can't keep on sacking guys. Same way that he's staying out. There you go. As he says as well, you can't just keep calling it a rebuild. You can't keep calling it a rebuild. You need to find what players are not all that garbage are actually not too bad and add to it.
We need to freshen this up. I made a point about Jose Mourinho and you get a cycle out of teams. I says that team went to the wall for Gerrard that year. And
this is something I said as well previously.
Two of them were starting today, Barisic and Tavernier. I says we need to
persisting with the same guys.
You move players on and that's what happens. And thankfully, it looks like a couple of them are out of contract and going to be leaving.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of John Lundstrom today, I will not say what I want to say because I'll probably get the show cancelled for saying it on the air. But
dear.
It was cowardice beyond belief. I remember Philip Senderos, if you can even remember.
A blast for the past. Big Phil Senderos, remember this?
I think that was actually Brendan Rodgers' first game. He actually jumped.
We did remember Joey Barton was coming for Scott Brown and Warburton was back and Breed pokes in your head.
That to me was Lundstrom. He scored an own goal. He knows he's leaving in the summer. I know you say, players are, that to me, he chucked out and he says, I agree with you guys. And how Kenny Miller on Sky said it wasn't a red card.
There you go.
It was a red card all day long. But
let's get another guy who sees common sense.
Really hope we can get this proper rebuild.
Tell it like it is.
The only concern is a bit like Van Bronckhorst a couple of years ago. Because of no money, now we're going to have to sell Butland and probably Sterling. If, we can get some money.
Well done, mate. Living in the now, living in the real world about the finances at the club. Do you know what? That's true. He makes a really good point, and he states the obvious. They can't keep on doing this rebuild. We get this every single time. Now, let's not forget as well, we weren't quite in what you would call a rebuild, but we lost some real quality players, and we didn't replace them appropriately. And that's where we've seen it when we were lacking, when we keep players out, we were lacking that real depth to pick us up when we needed it most. Rangers have went and spent more money during that summer transfer than Celtic. At least I believe they have. They spent a fair chunk of change, and we were all complaining because they were going out and buying guys. Now, in the fullness of time, these guys have turned out to be absolute dross. But I remember also commenting this and saying, no matter what you think of these guys, they've went, and their manager says, I want him, and they went out and they've spent the money and they've got these guys in. Now, it turns out they've been garbage, but they went and spent the money. We were apparently identifying guys and then not getting them, which was frustrating. But if we wind it back and we come in and we talk about the finances, Celtic have been known to have a very, very healthy bank balance. Bank balance FC, but give or take, wastage throughout the course of the season, wages, etc., etc. Probably, let's just, be sort of conservative about it. Let's just say we've got sitting in the bank at this moment in time about 55 million up to maybe say 60 million right now at this moment in time. But then going into summer, we're guaranteed almost a stick on 1 point for 6 we need, get into Champions League. That is going to be generating, it's going to be 8 games. That's going to be huge. That's going to generate income of up to 60 million just for getting in the door. So overnight, all that money that we've got sitting in the bank, that has been years and years of cultivating a good business model. This isn't just like a recent thing. This is literally 15 plus years of shrewd business, maybe being too shrewd, but huge amounts of proper business income sitting there. We are going to just boom, double that, have that, boom, there you go. Overnight, completely eclipsing years and years of saving for one entry to a tournament. That's before you then look at the season ticket money coming in. That's before the inevitable 4 tops, 5 training ranges and everything else that comes in. That's before the new Champions League package, which will be dearer because there's an extra game on it. So Rangers getting denied this money isn't just a 60 million plus in the pocket for us. It's also potentially a £120 million swing because we are depriving them of that. And do I think they will qualify for the Champions League? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So the chasm of that 60 million is only going to get wider and wider and wider. And Rangers can't keep going to the well that is dry. And he makes a good point. Rangers are going to get rid of guys. That'll free up some wages, but that isn't money at the front end. They'll maybe save about 100 grand, maybe up to 120, 130. I don't know, with these guys that are going off, because if you've got guys like Ruth, etc., that are on big contracts, they will free up cash, but that isn't money at the front end. That isn't transfer fees. You have to sort of reduce that down and work it out for there. If they are going to spend and roll the dice again, they probably are going to have to sell some players. The reality is, though, they don't have any particularly great sellable assets. The boy Lammers is out on loan at Utrecht or somewhere, and by all accounts, I think he's done not too bad. So they might get something out of him, but it's not going to be a fortune. Do you know what I mean? About 2.5, 3 million or something like that. They'll get their money back probably. Butland's the big one, and I would be happy to see the back of him, because if it wasn't for Jack Butland for Rangers, this title race wouldn't have even been anywhere near as close, because that man saved him and he gained him single-handedly or double, 2 hands, as many points as any other player in that park for Rangers. He's the only one that I actually think's got real proper money in him, and maybe, just maybe, some team in Holland or something would look at Dessers. Yes, the guy's garbage, but he's got a decent goal tally this season, so there's maybe money in him, but you know, money literally doesn't grow on trees, and they're going to start to wake up to this one.
511-1025, that's the number you need. This is the time and place
Who
to
we
get
getting
everything
next?
off your chest every Monday night, never mind at the end of a season. So how do you look back on the weekend? Game-specific stuff, or do you want to talk through 90 minutes at Celtic Park? And then as an overview,
Come on, give us a
this
call.
season as a whole. Do pick up or tweet us at Clyde. Kick things off tonight. How does it feel as a Rangers fan this weekend, Matt?
See what Matt's saying here.
Devastated when you've got a son and a Celtic supporter that keeps phoning you 48 times going, yeehaw.
Yes!
Get the phone turned off.
Matt's son's got the right idea.
I just want to talk to the panel about the total underachievers at Ibrox over the last 12
Are you
years.
starting to see a pattern emerge here? Serial losers, underachievers, bottlers. There we go. I just mentioned that. Rangers have been spending money to the extent where they've got the highest bill in the league, higher than the current champions.
He's on a sticky wicket and all. Because see the chopping and changing and that boy's Sterling. Many positions he's no.
This is a big one. When is the narrative really going to change for Philip?
Yeah, I mean, Matt,
You can hide behind a wee bit of the sort of rebuild stuff at the moment, but the reality is he's had 3 cracks at Celtic so far and he's not won any. He's also going into a cup final against Celtic, which I fully anticipate us to win. If he goes into a season having won just one cup, which, let's face it, Celtic weren't in, he had to negotiate a semi-final and a final. If he can lose 4 games if he can lose 3 games and draw 1 against Celtic in his first season, see Celtic win a double, pressure's on him from the start, isn't it? Pressure is absolutely on him for the start, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because it will come around.
got in a fairly good position that maybe people didn't expect earlier this season.
pretty tough. But what really gets in my gander is every time we play Celtic, to me, I've seen Rangers and Celtic games for years. I see the boys had left their arse on that park and played, but they don't. They've got this thing about them, they think they're better than they are, and they're not nearly getting dug in.
Back to the blood and guts again. He wants them to leave their arse on the park. Tav should give Maeda a right good dun. Pipe and slippers stuff, isn't it?
You can have 11 guys at a pub and put a better performance against Celtic. They've all died for you and played 90 minutes of effort. They're just doing too much money. And there's very few players that will stay there. You're talking about Butland, Sterling.
And see, this for me, I keep on saying it. We've seen this for a couple of callers. We've seen it online. We've seen it for pundits. We've seen it for ex-players. See this notion of give them a right good dunt, let them know that you're there, give them a knock. That's all fine and fair well. It sometimes does work. Sometimes being physical and getting up your opponent's face does have a place. But see, as far as I'm concerned, see if that is what you're crying out for. If that is what you want to be, a big, hard, robust, hammer-throwing team that's chopping you down to out-physicality, to physically outdo your opposition rather than outplaying them, that's as one-dimensional as it comes. And long may that thought process continue. Celtic want to get the ball down. Celtic want to play football. We talk about the Celtic way. It would appear that if you listen to, not necessarily, because I've got mates that are Rangers fans out there and they want to see good fast-flowing football, but there's also, as there always is, there's a real split in fan bases of what they expect. Some Rangers fans want free-flowing football, silky European style. Others want back to basics, blood, sweat, thunder, tears, snotters. And that's it. That's always the revert to type on that. When things don't go well trying to play football, they haven't done that for years. They call hoofball, chaos ball, boot the ball up the park, shell balls into the box. But so long as they want to keep on doing this sort of, looking back and saying, we should have been hard, then again, I keep saying it and I'm getting bored of saying it, but in fact, I'm not getting bored of saying it. They win nothing if that's the way they want to go.
Anyway, the backside was what. Let's just move on. 0125 Mark is also a Rangers fan.
What Mark's saying.
Sum up how tough this one was to take.
I've still got a migraine. That's how I sum it up. Okay.
Fair play, mate.
You can pick holes in Clement's tactics and various players. You can pick loads of holes. Why was Silva in the team? Loads of things.
See, to be fair to Silva, I actually thought he had a pretty good game for Rangers. I really did. I thought he tortured Alistair Johnson.
Mentally and physically to take Rangers to the next level, which is not that far away, I don't think. I think we've made, unfortunately, due to stupid errors, we've made Celtic look a lot better. And I don't think either of them are up to a lot.
That's true. I think I've said that both Celtic and Rangers versions of the teams this season have been very, very poor.
We've got a good manager, a really good manager, who's already won a trophy, and the board now need to
see this. He's got a very, very good manager. Very, very good manager. I'm not going to criticise the guy. Yes, he's won trophies, but I said this before when I spoke about him. When he's came in, all he has done, as far as I can see, is tidy up a bit of a mess, tie up some loose ends, make them a wee bit more robust, make them a wee bit more harder to beat. Well, not unless you're Celtic, of course, but he's making them win games that Rangers should be winning. Seasons upon seasons, as far as I can go back in memory, Celtic and Rangers should be beating everybody else, with the occasional loss or drop points to some other teams, maybe a decent Hibs shown one day, or a Hearts or whatever, or an Aberdeen. But generally speaking, they should be beating these teams. And that's all he done. He didn't reinvent the wheel. If you actually look at his points tally, but after the same amount of games as Van Bronckhorst and Beale, I think he actually finds himself in the last place of the three of them. It's great, isn't it, to sing the praises? This is exactly almost like the Beale coming in part 2. Steadying the ship a bit. On paper, looking good because they're not losing games that they've seen them lose before. Getting behind it Remember, Beale was an amazing manager, and we were going to see this season what he could do. And he went out and he shelled out in players, and it turned out that he was just another nobody that didn't have the credentials to do it. I'm not saying that's the case with Come On, but a word of caution here. They should be looking at it at face value, because their last 8 games, their points tally's been shambolic.
And he brought in his own team. The Rangers manager's not been given £1.50. Diamandi was signed on loan. They don't pay a penny for him until the summer. Cortez was on loan, and Silva,
Rangers haven't been given money because they didn't have the money.
They now need to back him with.
They didn't have the money. They need to back him with millions. The reason why Diamandi came in, and like you can say, yeah, we've done it before. It is usually a good bit of business, but delay the fee, kick it down the road. That's what they've done there, because they didn't have it to pay up front and just secure it and get it done there and then. So they've got him to pay for, I don't know what the fee is. I believe, if you believe what we're told though, it's about 5 million. So there's 5 million straight away that they're going to have to find. That's a big portion of any would-be transfer budget as far as I'm concerned.
Again, if they had signed Shankland, there'd been much better chance Rangers are champions. You can't guarantee that they'll win the league.
Shankland will always be
£5 million for Shankland,
the one that got away for Rangers, if you will, in a hindsight looking at this season. And I do genuinely believe that if Rangers did push the boat out to go and sign him, that they probably would have been a better position for this league, possibly to even kick on and really threaten us. But equally as well, I think if Celtic went out and spent the money on a Miovski over an Adam Ida, don't get me wrong, Ida has gave us some quality goals that have really, in the fullness of this season, will be vital. But if we had also pushed on and got Miovski, we would have probably scooshed the league. Sliding doors moments.
Which is clear. And to a lesser extent, Dessers, the boy's on 22 goals, I believe, Dessers, and he's not a goal scorer.
This is what I say about Dessers. They might get somebody wanting him.
And he's not a goal scorer. And he tries, every game he tries. So they need to let the captain go. Tavernier has been a wonderful player for Rangers. The goals.
I'm going to say it again, time and time again. Tavernier, I don't know what it is. He's just stinking the place out. And this is where Rangers have got a big decision to make. It's a rock and a hard place for them, because see, no matter what you think he'd have, see if you take his goals and assists, forget that they're penalties, right? Because Rangers, if he wasn't the team, somebody else would take those penalties, right? But just think of that. But as I say, I've asked my mates that are Rangers fans, I've asked other general Rangers fans when having discussions, and I've said, see if you take him out your team, you lose a huge portion of like danger for assists and stuff. But he keeps on costing you time and time again, being mentally weak and being bad at defending. So sometimes you've just got to cut that cord. You've got to take a risk. You've got to move on. You've got to let him flee the nest, as it were. Because if they keep on persisting with him, and every manager that's come in is like he's part of the furniture, they've never got the guts, they've never got the brass to actually try something different and move him on.
So the board will have to put up money, and if it's £25 million, £30 million season ticket money on players, they're going to have to speculate to accumulate here.
Rangers have rolled the dice season upon season upon season. The magic money tree keeps on going, but surely it has got to stop.
To see how that pans out, but thanks to Mark for sharing his thoughts there. Jimmy, then back to the blue perspective. Jimmy, how does it feel
See what Jimmy's saying here.
after the weekend?
I just think it's deja vu for us. The league's over. The league was over with the 3 games between ourselves and Motherwell and Ross County.
It is deja vu, isn't it? It must be like a bad dream. It must be like, they must be hoping it's like Dallas when they wake up at the end, they give it a shower, like, oh, it's not just a dream. It's not a dream, it's reality. What? You didn't need to beat Celtic. You beat yourselves. Maybe I'm wrong on this one. But if you think that you can take 1 point from 12 and go on to win the league, that's going to be good enough, then I'm sorry. I am sorry. I don't see how that's going to happen. Now, people might want to pull me up on this, because I did say when things were, I'll be honest, I'm always, happy to be self-deprecating and say that I was having a wobble. I did think that we were in trouble, and I actually went on record to saying I wouldn't be surprised if Rangers don't beat Celtic this season, but still win the league. Now, I wasn't necessarily saying that I thought Celtic would go and beat Rangers in all those games. I was more thinking that we would grind out draws against them, such was the way our form. And yes, if we had drawn games against Rangers, they probably could have went on to win the league, particularly if they capitalised on the dip of form that we had. But it's easy to sweep under the carpet results against Motherwell, results against Dundee, results against Ross County. People forgot those until now.
Ross County, Dundee and Motherwell.
There we go. Funny that.
You should have made the game on Saturday. Even losing the game, we'd still be 2 points ahead. So it's the inability for Rangers to beat other teams that's causing this. We need a massive clear out next season. We need to get rid of 10 players next season.
10 players. Who's going to take them?
And that includes the likes of Tavernier, Golson, Barisic, Lundstrom.
This is a cycle, though, isn't it? This is a cycle that we see time and time again. They hang these guys out to dry, get rid of Golson, get rid of Tav, get rid of Lundstrom. He will be going. But you know what I mean? The usual names keep coming up. What will happen is they'll get to pre-season, they'll play quite well, they'll be reinvented. Oh, look at Tav, what a pre-season he's had. What a player. That's what they do. These players are con artists to Rangers fans because they lift their game when it does not matter, and they once again buy in hook, line and sinker, and then it comes around and they let them down and they question them again, and then so on the cycle goes, and again and again and again.
Ross Jack, players like that.
Ross Jack.
He's absolute rubbish. And unfortunately,
I thought he was a great Blue Hope.
And there's scary stuff. Do we have the money, Gordon, to rebuild a massive rebuild next season? I agree with a couple of Rangers callers there, and this is probably one of the worst Celtic teams I've seen in a long time.
I'm not going to sit here and deny it. It's not a great Celtic team.
They're talking about the Celtic.
It doesn't matter.
30 million, what's Smarties? No way.
I think Atletico Madrid offered a fair bit in the
Oh,
summer.
man.
In the winter, sorry,
Oh.
not as much as 30. I think Atletico Madrid showed their intentions of spending.
Oh, he's
fairly big
raging,
money
isn't he?
on them in the
He's
January
hating the thought that Celtic have got a saleable asset.
Let's not split hairs on how much Matt Riley's worth.
It's irrelevant how much Matt Riley's worth, and this is the thing. Celtic, I've said this time and time again, Celtic have cultivated an actual real life player trading model. Celtic been able to get fees of 20 million, 25 million. That's been cultivated over year upon year, sometimes to their detriment, selling quality players. A proven track record. So when a team come in, Celtic can look and say, the last guy that we sold went for this. And look at where they are now. Look at what they're doing. Look at your guys like Jeremy Frimpong. They can look at these guys and go, Jeremy Frimpong he's won the Bundesliga. He's probably going to win the Europa League. And he's going to get a big move to a big team. That's where we get our value for, because we know we've got quality and we know where it's going to end up. So you're going to make a fortune off it as well. Rangers talk about a player trading model. It doesn't exist. It's fugazi. It's not even there. There's a wee Wolf of Wall Street quote for you since we're talking money. It doesn't exist. That's why guys like this chap's no happy at the notion that Celtic could get money, big money for a player. The reality is we do have proper sellable assets right across that team. Some more so than others, some lower amounts, but Celtic could sell players and get more money. Celtic could sell Matt Riley and probably get more money for that one player than if they sold Jack Butland plus one other.
I think that's the key sort of argument to get into this close to the travel news. But to revisit what Jimmy said, that we said about the numbers, that's a fact. You know, in terms of had Rangers beaten Ross County and Dundee, they would still be 1 point behind. Fine, Jimmy's thrown the Mullow game into the mix, and he says you don't need to beat Celtic. You can't have 1 point out the head-to-heads and win a title.
You can't. Sorry. You can't.
Craig is a Rangers fan. Have you calmed down any from the weekend, Craig, as a Rangers fan, or like how do you look back on things now?
Aye, good evening, guys. I was saying to the producer, I've calmed down a wee bit. I've had time to kind of digest.
Craig sounds quite level-headed here.
I think, like most Rangers fans, for me, it was a kind of weirdest build-up, to a title deciding Old Firm game I can remember because it was so quiet. Obviously not on your show, but just in terms of the full week last week, it was like it didn't even feel real, if that makes sense. Like there was an Old Firm game come up, it was just like so bizarre. But I've got a couple of points, and I've got a quick question for Andy just after that, if that's all right as well. Just about something
going to ask Andy, yeah.
But it's something that I've wanted to ask for a wee while. But my point is, like, I think as Roger mentioned earlier, Rangers, it might be Andy, I can't remember now, but saying Rangers have got the highest wage bill in Scotland. I think we need to get away from this stuff about getting guys like Ben Davies, Tom Lawrence.
This is a good point. See if you actually think of some of the guys in the markets that they've been shortman, and maybe that's just by design, the fact that they had Beale coming in, but they always seem to go to these markets of like down south championship guys and the likes. You've got Dowell, you've got Lawrence, Connor Goldson. That's very sort of English league centric sort of signing policy where guys are wanting to come up. Kamar Roof being a classic example. By God, he has been stealing a wage, hasn't he? He's essentially their Bane, isn't he? He's their Scott Bain, just cashing a cheque and loving life for doing absolutely nothing. But this is the thing, they do, and I think in some respects, one of the issues at Rangers that's deep set is this superiority complex of the quintessential Scottish team and all this kind of nonsense. And it's all about we sign players from like known established leagues. We go out and we get these guys, but I don't know, their agents must just write down a number on a bit of paper and they go, aye, all right. Yes, they have got a higher wage bill than Celtic. That is mental to think about, but it's spending wrong. It comes back to that old, whenever it used to be for every £5 Celtic spend, we'll spend a tenner. The difference is they're doing that now, but instead of buying quality, they're buying dross.
Kamar Roof was someone that's produced, so maybe not fair to put him in the same brackets.
I don't think Kamar Roof is paid back.
Just seems to be permanently injured, and I'm probably no far off here, but I think between the five of them, they're probably on about £100,000 a week, if you combine the wages. And
now that will be freed up when they get rid of Lundstrom, when they get rid of the Roof, so there'll be a fair chunk of change getting freed up there.
A wee bit of context, I'm somebody that fully behind Clement. You can't keep sacking the manager all the time. And
as I say, it sounds like a level-headed fan. He's got his finger on the pulse. He knows the reality. He knows that they're paying through the nose for dross. He thinks, you need to back your manager. I suppose you've got to. You've no real choice. And they could. We're sitting here, and I keep saying this when I do these type of shows. This isn't, we're a bit light-hearted and having a wee laugh, and that's that. But it's not to sort of be nasty to anybody that's phoning in. It's literally just to get a gauge of what's some of the general fans on the street from our opposition. Are they starting to look at reality? Because fans always spin their narrative the way they want to do, and a lot of fans were saying Rangers fans are so confident they're this, they're that, they're the next thing when the going was good. The question I've always asked with these shows is now that reality's setting in, is there still blind denial, blind faith, or are they starting to wake up, smell the coffee, if you want to use that term, and being honest with ourselves? And I think by and large, it's been quite a cross-section so far. This guy's certainly, I think, very decent. He seems that he's got his finger on the pulse and he knows that they're spending their money incorrectly on the wrong guys, and they've got to try and give their manager a chance because they can't keep changing it. And again, they could win a double. Nothing is done yet. Arguably, the league's not done yet, but let's face it, 1 point for 6 with one game at home. The league's done, but they could still win a double.
As I said, I've got a quick question for Andy after you digest that.
Right, what's Andy's question? Let's hear what he's asking Andy.
For Andy, Craig.
Aye, so it's a quick one. I just want to get Andy's thoughts. I don't know if you can say too much on it, but obviously trained by Alex Lowry when he was at Hearts for
Alex
6
Lowry,
months,
here we
I
go.
believe. And it's just on Andy's opinion. Do you think Alex Lowry, I know he's had a lot of stuff going on, his mum passing away and stuff like that, but do you think he's got the mentality to be a big player for Rangers next summer?
Do you know what? I want to criticise it, but at the same time, I've just got to look at it and say they're looking for hope. It's the great blue hope. They spoke about Alex Lowry, they spoke about him, and from what I've seen of Alex Lowry, I think, like the other guy says, McCausland, he's absolutely bang average. He went out to Hearts. I believe that there was, from my understanding, some articles and things that came out, that maybe he's got a wee bit of an attitude problem. Certainly, anytime he played against Celtic for Hearts, played for Hearts against Celtic, he was, my opinion, completely garbage. He's just another run-of-the-mill young player that isn't to the level they need. And there's no chance where they are they going to start depending on guys like McCausland and Alex Lowry. It just isn't going to happen. They all get excited about Alex Lowry before, and it amounted to nothing. They all get excited about McCausland this season, and largely it has amounted to nothing. It's a flash in the pan. Now, I know that can be because they're young players and the consistency levels aren't quite there, but there's no way they're going to be hanging their hat on McCausland and Lowry next season. It is just not going to happen. You know, look at McCausland anytime this season after his wee purple patch, complete and utter garbage. Just not the level. And this is like us with Mikey Johnson. The only difference, I suppose, is that Mikey Johnson's been down to West Brom and he's actually been really quite good. But that doesn't mean he's a solution for Celtic. And likewise, these guys aren't going to be a solution for Rangers. But again, if they want to pin their hopes on it, then I'm here for it. I'm all for it because I know, you know, and deep down they probably know they'll do nothing. So they get in the team is because they've no option.
What about Mike? How do you look back on it? Mike, where's it gone wrong?
Hi, panel. Thanks for coming, Mike. It's just
See what Mike's saying about it.
We've got 18 players injured this season, which is a complete shambles. We have signed players.
Do you remember when they got the doctor back? He was going to be the best signing of the summer. He's not done a very good job, has he? Because their injuries have been horrendous.
Which were injury prone, like John Suter, Emma Ruth, knowing what their track record's like, and we've still proceeded to
Celtic aren't exempt for this. We buy some jokers. McCarthy, anyone?
Conor Goldson, James Tavernier, and Donald Barisic, they've presided over title collapse over the last 2 seasons.
And the rest, if you take Tavernier.
The 2021 title.
And Goldson.
There's no fans in the stadium.
Oh, he just said that. He said that. They won because there was no fans in the stadium. You're a good, honest man. Well done, caller.
The cereal bottle merchants and
There the phrase again.
John Lindstrom, especially, he has regressed at a rate of knots.
He's went from being the best on earth to just being garbage.
We've lost the likes of Glenn Kamara,
Dung hammer.
Ryan Kent, Alfredo Morelos, Joe.
Crying for Kent and Morelos. Here we go. What I said about these guys, like Goldson, Tav, that they need to cut the cloth. They need to let them go. What I said about Rangers was when they got themselves their 55 season. Yes, it was against a backdrop of absolute madness for Celtic. We've done everything other than just concede the league without even playing. That would have been the only thing that would have made that more mental than it was. But that was them. They hit critical mass. That Rangers team peaked that season. And then they maybe, you could argue they carried it on. They didn't come away winning, obviously, but they managed to get to Europa League final. That was at the point. That was them at the top of the hill. That was them drained to their maximum. They'd squeezed every last ounce of possible talent and ability out that squad. They then had to rip it up properly and start again, but they didn't. They persisted with it, the same garbage. And that's kind of like what we done in that dreaded season. We should have freshened up. We should have got rid of guys. I know we brought in a lot of garbage, which didn't help, but there was a lot of people still hanging about that had to go. They outstayed their welcome. You need to work in a cycle. You need to work on a time scale. You can't just keep on keeping folk around.
And we've replaced them with lesser talent. I think we've got a monumental rebuild. I think the rebuild is going to be even more than what it was under Steven Gerrard, because the players in that squad just now, they're an empty shirt, and the way the attitude of the players at the weekend.
Will they give the money though? I know that we keep saying, do they have the money, but will they give the money? That's the biggest question. Will they do it? They gave Gerrard money upon money simply because he had a name. He had a name brand. He was a franchise in his own that could attract folk, and they knew that they were generating cash with Gerrard being about. Come on, Bale, Van Bronckhorst, they don't have that same marquee pool. So if they risk it on these guys, they're not necessarily going to get any return from having the Gerrard factor, if you will, the celebrity element. Thank God we never bought Davies, by the way. Can you imagine?
I mean, John Winston's body positioning, he was completely the wrong way. Put the ball in his own net. I mean, but he can done it at the other end. The only ones who were busting a gut is like Julian Sterling and Jack Butland.
Again, I think Sterling and Butland, the guys are right. Best players for Rangers on that pitch. Best players for them by a country mile. Only guys that should be getting pass marks for them. I mean, I'm not here to give Rangers players pass marks, but you've got to be honest and say, yep, Butland saved them. Seifi Kogo was outstanding. And the boy Sterling, he was asked to play two positions, and the twice he done it, he was all right for them. The rest of them, just, as they say, bottle merchants.
Maybe a sign of what that tackle was like.
The boy's not denying it's a red card.
Imagine I offered you, spoke on it.
Let's see what
Fed up with the same.
Whoa!
Fed up with the same. Though it's been labelled.
Oh.
Back. Yeah, we're good. I'll give you. Can you?
Have you got me on my audio there? What happened there?
In Drumchapel, James. Bit of dust settled, but how would you sum up this Rangers team at the moment?
Share of bottle bags. On a run, I know it's been labelled umpteen times, you probably heard that a lot, but for me, guys, I know what's coming now for this Rangers team. They go a goal down, the hits are all down, we've got a captain, as far as I'm concerned, don't get me wrong, he's been a great servant, and he's played for him, he's dug us out whole leg for whole, but see for me, guys, I want my captain to show the same passion that I've got when I'm shelling out money, week in and week out, on to watch us mob. Now, I stand and I watch these people, and it's not just, I want leaders on the park. I want somebody like a Kevin Thompson, a Barry Ferguson, a Richard Goff.
Here we go. We're back again. We're back. Blood, thunder, snotters, sweat, tears. Long may it continue that is the answer. We're one step away from saying, get Bomber Brown as the manager.
Somebody that's going to stand in that tunnel at Park, you can say, right, Rangers, we've got to battle here today. But they don't. They're all standing about laughing and joking, want to shake hands. Then you get having your laughing and joke with Callum McGregor at the start of the game. You're getting an old firm game. Show the passion, show the how that every single Rangers fan wants you today. You wouldn't have seen that Terry Butcher or a Barry Ferguson standing doing that before an old firm game. I'm getting fed up with the same taste in my mouth after old firm games, guys. Rodgers has got his own toasting now, right?
Yes!
I'm not going to blame Clement here because it's not a Clement team. But for me, you're starting looking at these guys and thinking, you know where it's coming from? They don't have the bottle. They don't have the leadership. And for me,
it's not a Clement team, but there's a good manager. There's an elite manager, as we were told he was. Does he not bring players up, pull them up, get them in the mind frame, get them in the mindset, get them determined, get them firing? You know, Rodgers, for all that he said his criticisms up and down this season, he has arguably taken quite a bad bunch and made them into winners. He had a period where he had them flying, and then he had a period where they were sinking. But again, he pulled them back up. He got them in the right headspace and kicked them on. And if their Celtic team is as bad as a lot of these callers have been saying that they are, then what does that say about the two managers? What does it say about their style? What does it say about their ability, their mind management? One guy can take a turd and literally polish it. Another one can take a turd and, well, just let it fester.
John Lundstrom should never kick another ball for Rangers Football Club. Because what
But he
he
will.
did what he did there on Sunday, it might not change the
So that's what he wanted.
score in any way.
Blood and thunder and guts and anger and aggression.
Get yourself back into the game, and then he goes and does something stupid as that. Now, for my captain, I'm looking for James Tavernier to be there and say to him, what the are you doing? What's going on? But I bet you any money, they went into that dressing room and gave it half luck, John. Oh, you were so unlucky. No, I don't want to hear this. You made a mistake. No, he didn't. He just goes straight
Shouldn't
to
have
the
laughed,
title.
but it was funny.
James has given me a few hard mouth moments there, but I don't think he swore at any point. But it was bottle bags was the first word, and then he edited his James Tavernier impression. Not really what it comes down to.
He drags his team through games.
Yeah, but in a different way though.
Aye, maybe in a different way, but they've got other shouters on that part. They've got big.
So I'm talking about the comparison of the captains.
For me, it's as much as I hate to say it, I think he's been one of the better players this season. We don't have
Carter Vickers.
guys. I'm looking for my centre halves to go and be commanding. Right, if you John Shooter, he's 6'3", 6'4", or whatever. I just don't know, guys. Even when you get Dolson playing in the team, Dolson's actually a bomb scare.
But he's also a good goalie.
He's been there 2 seasons too long now for me, and he seems to skate through criticism. It's always Tavernier that gets the criticism.
It's because he's the captain.
Dolson's just as much to blame as anybody else in that team. But I'll come back to what I'm saying about the managers. Guys, I first started going to see Rangers under Jock Wallace. Then it was Souness, and then it was Butler.
A long season fan, fair play.
I don't think Lundstrom would have come out of that dressing room with a marked face had that been any of the theory managers. They would have went through the players for the fact that heart that they showed. That's what I'm saying. People
Again, back to basics, shouting at players, that's what's going to G them up. We've seen that that's the law of diminishing returns. And sometimes that's, and I'll use it, I'm not, no criticism to him because he's a well-decorated manager for Celtic, but if you ever notice when Neil Lennon was at when he went to the Hibs, when he was at other club, for example, that fire and brimstone management, it takes you so far, but then as time goes on, the cracks start to emerge, the fallouts happen, stuff like that. It's not a sustainable method for management.
can be better than you. But see, for me, guys, I'm not the one who's getting football player, but I'll run all day and my hard work will shine through. And sometimes that's what you need. You need to work harder. You need to run faster than certain people. And we've no got that.
James, it sounds like this team has pushed you to the end of
James
your
is not
your
enjoying
patience.
Rangers
You
now.
lost it all with them now.
Well, I was the guy that was on and I said I was taking back under Bill, if you remember, after we get beaten the Bill Firm game.
He walked away.
I was taking back after that. What I'm going to say is I'll give Clemont's time, but we need to get rid of the deadwood in that team now. It's long overdue.
Easier said than done. I've said that a million times on this.
Heartless people, let's say, we need to get leaders back in that dressing room. Andy will tell you he's grown up as a Rangers fan. We had leaders in that part. A Barry Ferguson that would moan and gaff his nutty people because of such high standards. Right now, my club, as they go to
Right.
standards now, and it's fell away.
Quite a lot going on, you can.
And we'll just finish that up there. But just to touch on that last caller, this is something that myself and Liam spoke about on one of our previous podcasts when we were looking at the two clubs and comparing them. See, as much as I don't buy into this fire and brimstone and, get right into them sort of thing and Rangers men stuff, what Liam says, and I do think to an extent it is true, Rangers have lost their Scottish identity. That's something that's throughout our club. If you look at it, we've got guys who have been there, that have done it, that do know what it means to play for Celtic, do know what it means to win. And that's guys like you've got Forrest, you've got Cal McGregor, but then you also look onto the guys that are in and around the club, and your guys like Kennedy and stuff like that. Ralston, we've got a Scottish identity, a core group of guys that know what it's all about. Now, I'm not saying, and I've sort of half criticised that notion, that's something Rangers should go to, but if you look through it, they are laden with mercenaries, as we've said, from down south. They've come up for the championship and whatever, and they like this idea where they buy into the club and they buy into, oh, look at the marble staircase and all this wishy-washy nonsense. What Rangers don't have is an identity, and I think that's something that they have really missed a beat with, and much to our, benefit. People will laugh, and you might even laugh when I say this, but for me, the outstanding candidate for Rangers when they needed a manager was Derek McInnes. Now, you might scoff at that, but Derek McInnes, in my opinion, could have done no worse for Rangers than Clement has so far, than Beale has, than Van Bronckhorst. And certainly we look at McInnes in the picture for a Manager of the Year this year. Got a team like Camargue into Europe. Outperformed us so far. Hopefully, when it comes to Wednesday, we'll get put them back in their place. But he has an identity, and at the heart of it, he's not necessarily the shouty manager that they want, but he still is grounded in that. And I think that is something that's an important takeaway. Rangers have lost their identity, whereas Celtic have maintained our identity. And that is why we find ourselves poles apart. Well, listen, thanks for watching. It's been quite fun there. That was a long one, but there was a lot to unpack, as you can imagine. A lot to unpack there. It was quite good fun. As I says, these things they're just there really for a wee bit of fun. There's no hard feelings involved in it. It's literally just to get a wee gauge, a social experiment, as I call it. This was, of course, the very first, the inaugural Royal Rumble. So I hope you enjoyed it. It was a long one. My absolute shoulder is gouting here. You've probably seen me wincing. Sorry if I was a wee bit hard to look at there at times on the camera. But thanks for joining us. As always, we appreciate everything and all the support that you've been giving us here at CWO. The numbers are picking up. The community is growing. We're just short of our next milestone, which would be 500 subscribers. If you can help us get there, that would be fantastic. Make sure you subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Share us. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell anybody that likes Glasgow Celtic to get themselves over here and get involved. So we'll be back throughout the week. We've got a big game coming up against Kilmarnock. We'll have a wee look at that and we'll break it down as always. But until then, we've got 1 point to get for 2 games. The title's nearly there. There's one hand on it. Let's clinch it. So we'll see you later and hail, hail. Uh-oh.